We run into that all the time.
All right. So today we are going over conscious Mercury in our human design chart. And I'm really excited because this pertains to your marketing message. Mercury rules communication in general. So astrologically and in human design, so that, that all matches right up. That Mercury placement is where our most authentic expression comes in. So let me share my screen here. There we go. And get up to this front page. Here we go. All right. And does everyone see my screen here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So again, conscious Mercury. We will also talk about the shadow and the gift as usual, but it's got a little bit of a different twist on it in this context than it did in some of the other places that we looked at. So our current update is that we are just now finishing, actually, I think it's on Friday is where this changes. Mercury has been in retrograde in an astrological sense, meaning if, normally it looks like it's going forward in the sky or ahead of us in the sky, when it's in retrograde, it looks like it's going backwards. We're actually, we're in a space where the earth is moving faster. And what that can cause, again, astrologically, it senses disruptions in communication, ruptures in communication in lots of different ways. A really hilarious note that I found multiple times, 3 different times on Zoom calls while I was on a Zoom call with someone, was that the other party literally lost Wi-Fi connection and just complete connectivity during our Zoom call and had to get on a different device and get onto a different network just to continue. That happened 3 times in the last 2 weeks. And it almost never happens, right? So stuff like that will come up, and communication, Mercury retrograde type things. So that just felt like, oh, that fits really well for us to talk about this week as we start to look at our unique way of communicating in the world. And when you, I don't know, notice some miscommunications or misfiring in your messaging, different things like that, that you can just be really gentle with yourself. And sometimes it's not you, it's just the collective energy kind of moving around, being wonky. So first, we're going to talk about what conscious Mercury is. And I want to get to the meditation today, but if we don't have enough time for that, I would like to start recording the meditations in their own little sections and posting those on the members area as well. So if we don't end up having time for that today, I will record that separately and make that available for you. But we'll just see. We'll play it by ear. And then if there are any questions, have time for some Q&A about anything else that's come before. And then we have some good homework for the week as well. So to start, on your body graph, the conscious Mercury is this guy right here. So the conscious side is the personality side, or on this version of the chart, this black. So any line that's black is going to be conscious or personality. And then the red side is your unconscious or your design side, also representative as anything red in the chart. So that's what we're, again, looking right here. So it goes Sun, Earth, North Node, South Node, Moon, and Mercury. So Mercury expresses and teaches communication and thinking. That is, what it rules in general. And this is the symbol for Mercury in astrology. So this next passage comes straight out of this one. This is the book that I really enjoy by Linda Bonnell. that Mercury, the archetype of the eldest son, represents the expansion of human consciousness, as well as the need within us to communicate. Mercury is closest to the sun and thus metaphorically has its ear. Mercury programs the personality crystal from the time it enters the body until birth. Where your personality, the black side, Mercury, is defined, gives you insight into what you need to communicate in this life. I just noticed some typos. We'll just let those slide. Your design, the red side, Mercury, also has something to communicate, but we often do not know why we are telling something to someone when it expresses through our unconscious form. So we won't go over that too much, but it's I have spent time looking at both sides, the conscious side and the unconscious side. And it's really fascinating to kind of notice that unconscious Mercury as well. But when we're talking about conscious Mercury, this is the message that we are here to deliver in this lifetime. And who are we here to deliver it to? It's our fractal line. That fractal line is the group of humans, of souls here in the same lifetime with us that you are meant to connect with, meant to support, meant to be supported by. That's who this message is going out to in order to draw them to you, to magnetize them to you. So it really works in concert with the culture sphere that we talked about several weeks ago, right? The culture sphere is also how we magnetize others to us and how we magnetize ourselves to our fractal line. This piece, the conscious Mercury, is the literal messaging that you can use to accomplish that. So when we look at shadow versus gift, the shadow of your conscious Mercury will be what your fractal line is currently experiencing with regards to your offering in the world on the low side, on the desire for change, right? They're in a space where they want change, and this is speaking to what they're experiencing right now in that midst of, I want to change. The gift is what your fractal line is desiring to experience. That's what they want to move to, that you can help them achieve or experience. Talking to the shadow and the gift, moving from A to B, is going to be the most powerful way for you to communicate the transformation your fractal line wants to move towards. So I'll pause there just for a second. Does that make sense? Do we need any clarification on that? Good. Okay. So here's the example from mine. So my conscious Mercury is 64.2. It is right there, and it's in the crown center for me. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. We're going to dive into more of that next time, but we'll touch on it. So, because it's in my crown, it is in an undefined center, and it is not connected to a full channel. It is just the one gate in an undefined center. So that's important. But for me, thinking about what I do, I work in the financial space, in all of the ways that I work. And in this gate before completion, transition, like birth, requires a determined strength for the passage through the gate of confusion. So the shadow is confusion, the gift is imagination, and the siddhi is illumination. So when I think about this in terms of what my fractal line is experiencing, confusion is such a normal thing for people on my fractal line to be experiencing, because in finance, right, it's usually there's so much to figure out. There's, a million different ways to position things, and there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of feeling like, I don't know what the right thing to do is. And so what do? We've got the repressive and the reactive side. The repressive side is imitating. The confusion leads to, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to do what my dad is doing. I don't know what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to do what my business partner is doing. Literally imitating what other people are doing without understanding if it applies to their situation or not. I had a prospect once that literally called me because she did Roth IRA contributions one year, and her CPA at tax time said, do you have a financial advisor? She's like, no, why? She's like, because you did Roth IRA contributions and you cannot do Roth IRA contributions. We're going to have to figure out how to walk that back, because she made way too much money to make Roth IRA contributions, but she didn't know that. She asked her friends who were in the same industry as her, oh, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something, but I don't know what. So, do you know what I should do? And they said, we did Roth IRA contributions, not knowing that she made 5 times as much money as they did that year, literally. So that imitating can lead to a lot of issues. The confused, on the other side, again, it's so clear in my line of work, right? People get confused about their money and they actually shut down. They get upset, they get fearful. And they just sit and spin in that confusion and they don't do anything. So when we're going to imagination, what do? I help them see the possibilities. Let's imagine what you actually want to experience, how you want your finances to be structured. What do you want it to feel like when you get paid, when you pay someone else? Let's go into that space of imagination so that we can then actually co-create what that does, how you actually accomplish that. So you're not confused anymore. So that you are, creating the life that you want to create and actually living it. So that's, for me, again, when I saw this, I was like, this is just like spot on. It's not always going to be quite so easy to create that marketing message, but there should actually be something, and we'll go through that towards the end too. You should be able to pick out, the synonyms or the idea, especially between the reactive and repressive, that really fits for you. So the line designations are still very important, just like we talked about with the prosperity sequence. But the difference here is that each gate has its own name for its line designation and its own expression of line designation. So for me, for example, mine is 64.2. So the line designation is line 2 qualifications. So that's a really interesting one as well for me to think about. So let's pause here. I would love to help you because I don't know, does anyone else have this one? You have that one? Okay. But let's pause. What are your gates? And then I'll give you the line designation for those as well.
I have a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
So with human design and gene keys, can you apply any number that's in your human design chart to the gene keys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where the marketing message right here, these are the gene keys.
Yeah, I know. And I'm just kind of wondering in general, across the board, like that would be applicable to use these books and systems cross-referencing in that way.
Yes. I feel like that gives such a more holistic picture to do it that way. I really find a lot of value in looking at the full gate, looking at both sides, looking at the human design information. And then every once in a while, if I feel like the gene key isn't quite giving me everything that I'm looking for, also, I'll actually look to the I Ching specifically, because the gene keys are like
Right.
a reimagination
Yeah.
of the I Ching. So sometimes the I Ching will share something, even, you know, like another nuance that really helps.
And then I had one more question that's kind of general like that. With with our Conscious Mercury and last week's brand sphere, mine are both in the same codon ring. They're the only two in that codon ring.
Interesting.
The ring of no return.
Ooh.
It's 31 and 62. And those are my brand and my Conscious Mercury. And you had said when that happens to pay extra close attention. What am I paying extra close attention to? Just that it like amplifies them, or
Yeah, that you are like in your own system. So your own, you know, Richard Rudd calls it the hologenetic profile. Like you are actually connecting those by yourself. You're not even needing to reach out to someone else, or, you know, have another connection that will help fill that for you. You are creating that connection.
like a complete circuit in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those energies, and the way that he explains it with some of the other codon rings, that those energies affect and inform each other. And since you have both in conscious and important places in your profile, that those will affect and inform each other pretty strongly.
Great. Okay, thanks.
So let's Kira said you said yours is 57.4, right? Is that what I saw? Yes, 57.4. So that one. The gate is 57, the gentle, intuitive clarity, the extraordinary power of clarity. I like that. So the line designation, line 4 is the director. This shows up a lot in your profile, doesn't it, Kira? Something of that nature, like the director, the bridge, yeah. So with the human design designations, I'll show you this too. So they have an ascendant and descendant energy on both sides. So line 4, the director, the high side expression is the mastery of relationships that through clarity can maximize productivity, while the sensitivity to interrelationships will ensure harmony. The possible intuitive clarity to master relationships, which was that your culture sphere also?
The networking one?
There was something else that was, didn't you have this one? What was it?
Mine was gate 28, the game player, and the line 4 was network.
Maybe it wasn't that one. I thought you maybe had the one that was the relationships again, like why am I'm like seeing it on the page? My photographic memory is like seeing the page and forgetting like the actual words. Battle of the Sexes.
That was my that was my brand. So 6-2, friction and passion.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's where that was coming from. So this is really interesting that that's your brand, and that's, you know, again, what your brand being what other people see in you, and that your marketing message then is also tied to the mastery of relationships and the sensitivity to interrelationships. So, and then on the detriment side, a tendency given this position to be dictatorial rather than directorial. So not words that I normally say. With the gift of clarity to master relationships, the possibility of being intuitively dictatorial. What do you hear from that? Are there any questions that come from that for you?
It's interesting that this is for my communication, my marketing messaging, because I want to move into, and I am making the move into body work. And it feels like this is what I work with people when they're already my client and I'm like doing the work with them and being the communicator between them and their body. But I'm not quite seeing it yet of it to be like the forward facing before somebody is my client, like before I'm actually doing the work with them.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So in the gene keys, it's going to be the shadow is unease and the gift is intuition and the siddhi is clarity. Which again, yeah, that came up in the high side, the possible intuitive clarity to master relationships. So here's the repressive and the reactive. The repressive nature is hesitant. Hesitancy occurs when an intuition is suppressed by the power of the mind. The body knows what is correct in every cell of its being. Here it is. The body knows what's correct in every cell of its being, but the mind immediately imposes its doubt, anxiety, or opinion, thereby rendering the true perception powerless. Hesitancy or indecision is the hallmark of the shadow frequency. These are people who tend to become trapped by their own worries, which make them unable to really feel the certainty of spontaneous clarity and commitment. The reactive nature is impetuous, and then we'll kind of like piece it together. Impetuousness arises as a human reaction to unease or fear. Its sole purpose is to try to escape or bring an end to fear through making a quick decision. Such decisions are not made from the state of clarity described above, but are themselves rooted in fear. Because of the nature of impetuous decisions, they can only lead to more misery. The key to escaping the loop that such decisions inevitably create is to detect one's own fear and experience it fully without reacting first. This witnessing is precisely what dismantles the pattern. So in this whole reading, unease, especially thinking about body work, unease in your body, the inability, the hesitancy to actually trust your body.
Yeah, I'm thinking about if I'm using this in the marketing terminology, then it's almost like me saying what I do and what I have noticed and what I'm helping other clients, like helping my clients with. Like the sentence, the body knows what is correct in every cell of its being, I like firmly believe in and have experienced quite a lot. And I've had to do a lot of work to like not impose my own self on somebody else's body while I'm doing the work and like go too hard or fast or even be following my body story instead of their body story. So I guess that's something I could talk about in my messaging.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah, the impetuous doesn't ring as like helpful to me versus the hesitant nature. And moving into intuition, let's see if there's anything that jumps out. The gift of intuition is basically your body's system for interacting harmoniously with the outer world. It is the low frequency prenatal programming that later interferes with clear operation of your intuition. As you address the shadow states that such a process naturally bring to light, so you will witness a deepening sensitivity inside you to everything and everyone in the world around you. This is what the 57th gift of intuition is about. It's the natural guidance system of all human beings. So in body work, when you think about that, if we're applying it here, and I mean, even in other aspects of your work, the hesitancy to trust yourself versus the ability to relax into and trust your intuition so that you're developing sensitivity, developing trust in your natural guidance system. How does that ring to you?
I think that one kind of goes along with the reactive nature, impetuousness of like, there's two different ways to make quick decisions. And if I'm in my shadow side, I'm making it out of fear. And if I'm making it in my gift side, then I'm making it out of intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I'm guiding my clients, whether in body work or in like operations work, often I'm come across things and I need to make a quick decision. And sometimes if it feels like the person's really expecting one, but I don't have one yet, then I'll make one out of like, I'll just come up with an answer as fast as I can. But lately I've kind of been leaning more into like, I'm not sure, we'll figure that out. But I think that it's, yeah, I think the messaging is about trusting my intuition and the client's intuition. And that's like my goal overall, is to get to that place that's like a cellular decision instead of like a made up direction.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Yeah. And honestly, that feels very different as a point of, differentiation between you and other operations specialists or body work, anything like that, where you're consistently coming back to what's, I want to be connected to my intuition. I want you to be connected to your intuition as well, versus my way is right here. You like submit to what I want to do.
Yeah, one way or the other, either them submitting to me or me submitting to them.
Right. Interesting.
Cool, thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah. And then Kristen, gate 62. Yours is close by here. It's nice.
Wait, I have the opposite of you, right? I'm 62.4 and you're 64 too.
Yeah. That's all up there.
I'm skimming it a little bit and I'm like, it's sort of bits are landing, but I would love to hear any reflections you have.
Yeah.
Focus in here.
Yeah. So let's look at the 62.4. So you're line 4 here as well. Gate 62 is the preponderance of the small and details. So it's interesting. Caution, patience, and detail produce excellence out of limitation. So like limiting your scope to hone in on details. So line 4, the exalted aspect of line 4 is called asceticism.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. The perfected ascetic withdrawal in the pursuit of harmony and simplicity, where outside dangers do not exist, and there is time to pursue inner meaning in detail. Detail that can only be expressed after periods of isolation and reflection. Interesting. So that's the ascetic.
This is in Mercury. Does that mean that I would have the next bit down would be more standing out in my chart? Do you see what I mean? Like in the part you just read, it has the little Mercury symbol that looks like it's
that's Venus. That's the Venus symbol. It doesn't have the little horns.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there is an astrological connection there. I need to look and see in my chart if that's true. For me, it might mean that your Mercury placement is in Venus in your astrological chart. Or when it's passing through Venus could also be another piece. But the detriment is the urge to take action against established values that, when restrained by circumstances, leads to withdrawal that waits for opportunity. Where the detail is organized, isolation as a strategy, waiting for the right opportunity for expression. So it's interesting because they're both about withdrawal in a way, but with different intention, right? So when your intention is to come back into yourself for reflection and then share, that's very different from like withdrawing and like waiting for the right opportunity to like spring on someone is what's coming to me. Like hiding in the bushes versus, you know, like withdrawing for reflection between those.
Both of them.
What?
I relate to both of them, having to doing both of them, those versions.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's coming to mind in the detriment part is waiting. I have a history of waiting, and never actually like doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I'm reading this, the detriment one, that's like one of the things that is coming to my mind right now.
Yeah, that feels really on point because it's, yeah, like you're like, no, I'm waiting. Like that's my strategy right now is I'm waiting. You're like, well, what are you waiting for? Like, I'm just waiting, waiting for the right time versus, yeah, coming out of reflection and saying, I withdrew, I did my reflection and now here's what I learned.
Mhm.
And expressing that because you do have your manifesting generator, you have the ability to express always. You have that direct connection to your throat all the time. Ooh, I love this. So in the gene key, so going over to your gene key, the gene key is the language of light. It's beautiful. So the shadow is intellect, the gift is precision, and the siddhi is impeccability. Interesting. The shadow of intellect, the stupidity of being clever.
I know that one.
Yeah, right. Many people may be surprised to see the word intellect represented as one of the shadows. The language of the gene keys holds true at all levels of frequency, and unlike human languages, it is not a language that can be learned and mastered via the intellect alone. That's the key there. To master the language of creation, we have to embody it fully at every level, not just the intellectual level. However, in the modern world, intellect is generally regarded as a sought after and admired human gift rather than as something that might actually hamper human evolution. Therefore, it is important to clarify some terminology. Intellect is most often confused with intelligence and understanding. In the context of gene keys, intellect refers to the thinking capacity of the human mind, which bases all its suppositions on its two main objectives, the acquisition of facts and the skill of manipulating those facts via language. That's interesting. Intellect is the skill of manipulating knowledge, but knowledge is quite different from understanding. Super interesting. So let's look at that. Let's look at the shadows. So the repressive nature being obsessive. When the shadow turns inward, it becomes obsessive. Everything is about focusing on the small things. Details. Interesting, right? When fear manifests through the shadow, it uses detail as a way to avoid feeling its own suffering. These people become lost in the mundane world, living a life of endless details with little or no creative outlet for their life force. For the majority of humanity, the shadow serves to repress the natural sparkle of the individual by keeping him or her locked into a monotonous mindset where details are both one's crutch and one's enemy. The reactive nature is pedantic. These people use their intellect to attack everything outside of them in an attempt to defend their own deep insecurity. Such people are entirely in the grip of their intellect, which questions everything endlessly, and in particular, delights in finding obscure details and facts that disprove and disempower others. They focus on other people in order to not look at themselves. The source of this complex is a sense of rage, which the mind keeps bottled up until something or someone triggers its release. So interesting. So in the sense of your marketing message, if we're talking about either the book or the program coming through, how do you see your people, your fractal line, in that shadow of intellect? What is that? Does that hit on either side, either the obsessive side or the pedantic side? Do either of those ring true for you?
They don't particularly ring true. I mean, if I had to choose one, I might choose the pedantic, and that was more like as a young adult, playing that earlier.
Well, more so this one, again, we're looking more at what your client would say that they are experiencing?
Okay. I would say I don't think the repressive one. I'd be surprised at that. Maybe yeah, so again, if I had to choose, I would say probably the reactive.
Okay. So that would be, because we think about a lot of what you're doing, a lot of it is almost to the point Kira was making, like taking these ideas, right? Or like things that we talk about and then pulling it in, like what's your experience of it, so that you can move through whole body healing in a different way, move past, chronic issues, or help in the program, help your own clients move through chronic issues in a new way versus, constantly intellectualizing only. Does that ring true?
So for them, okay, wait, I might have misunderstood what you were saying. So it's not about what they're perceiving how I am. It's more about what's going on for them in their own experience and how I can help them. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let me revisit this again for a minute.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, exactly. This is like the mind shift. Like, it's what is your client experiencing that they want to move out of?
Okay. So I would say then maybe it might be more the repressive.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Beautiful.
I would say that my ideal client would be more the repressive. The pedantic one would be more like, I feel like it'd be harder to access. Like I wouldn't want them in a group container. That's almost like the skeptic in a way, where it's like they're not wanting to be helped because they're just like trying to get me to prove something the whole time.
That's really, really important. Yeah. So then that's where the marketing message, you want to hone in on that aspect there, that repressive side, that this is who you want to help lift into. So then the gift energy is, what are they wanting to experience? What are they wanting to feel? And the gift of precision is far beyond the realm of intellect, which, as we have seen, is based more on knowledge. As you start to awaken through the higher frequencies of this gene key, you either begin to question the world around you, the repressive nature, or you stop questioning everything, the reactive nature. Awakening is magical in its ability to bring about a natural balance within your being. In other words, if you're caught up in the obsessive behavior, your mental abilities suddenly begin to come alive again, as though someone had cleaned the windows of your perception. This is your key right here. Yes. In case of the reactive shadow, your awakening will take you through a natural humbling process in which you realize that you are causing your own misery by focusing in minute and irrelevant detail on anything and everything but your own pain.
I mean, that sounds kind of true too, in terms of the people I'm serving when it's put in those words.
Yeah. So this will be where you focus to, like, okay, how do I put that into words that my fractal line uses? And that's detailed in the little homework section. Awesome. Does that help? Did that help you too, Kira, to hear that reframing? Like,
Yeah.
not
And
what
it
you,
actually kind of made me think when we were reading the thing from the gene keys, like, because if those are the things that my audience members, my fractal line are dealing with, I also, like, if I took things from the gene keys and put it on a website, it would talk to what they needed.
yeah.
And like made it my own. It sounded like it was like the gene keys response was what they would want to hear and what feels aligned.
Exactly. And you will use your put it into words that your people will use, right? Like that's the shift. You don't, just like from confusion to imagination, like, right, that doesn't really, I can use confusion because that makes sense, but imagination, people are kind of like, what does that mean? Okay. So we went through the lines. This we will talk about more next week. I just wanted to like share a little bit about it. So for me, and so I want you to look on your body graph and see if this is true for you. For me, my 64 is in my crown and it's not defined. And so that, what that means, if you have a defined center that's colored in, you have consistent access to that energy, and it's an energy that you project out into the world. That's like some of the light that you shine, that you impress upon others. Your undefined centers will be white, but they'll have an undefined specifically means that you do have gates. So for me, my white centers, I have one gate in every single undefined center. That means you don't have consistent access to this energy unless you're in connection with another person that connects. And I think I've done connection charts for each of you. So like you can see like, oh, when we're together, we connect these different channels, that kind of thing. That can give you access to these undefined centers where, so you can impress upon others. And it can also be in transit energy, literally like when we talk about the transit of the planets, right? So that will be an aspect as well. We'll touch on that next week. Those things will light up or color in that center for you. But naturally, when you're by yourself, when you're not in others' energy, these are centers that you are receptive to other people's energy around you. This is also a place where your intuition is likely strongest. For me, that would be the solar plexus, the emotional center. I will actually feel the emotions of people around me very strongly. And I will feel them more strongly than they will feel them in their own bodies at times. I will also receive inspiration and receive like downloads of words. I think I've shared that before with my clients, people that I'm very connected to. I'll just have like thoughts and words downloading into my mind, and it's actually something that I'm receiving from them. So those undefined centers are actually really special because those are places where, again, you are uniquely intuitive as well. Not that you can't also read energy from, some of these others, but it really is an interesting thing to look at in your own chart and see where you're undefined. Open would mean no gates are active. So it's completely like if this 38 was not active, that would be open. So it's similar to undefined, but it's a place where you have no energy normally. And so you are more susceptible, I guess, to higher conditioning in those areas. So we'll talk about that more next week. I just wanted to share that. Okay, so we only have 9 minutes left. So I'm going to record the meditation separately and share that. This is a really, really beautiful one. So I will share that with you and have you go through it on your own and journal out what comes through. But this particular meditation is, getting yourself into this place of understanding what's the message that just really wants to come out. What's the thing that's on your heart that wants to move through you? And then how can you put that into this context of shadow to gift? Okay, so I wanted to go through this part because again, this is the exercise for you to like put this into the words that your people will use. So again, what's the shadow of your conscious Mercury? What is the gift? And the shadow of your conscious Mercury will be what your fractal line is currently experiencing with regards to whatever it is that you do on that low side. And the gift is what they are desiring to experience that you can help them achieve or experience. So that first step, write down all the ways that the shadow shows up in your line of work for your fractal line. And then, what are words that they are going to use? So they might not use intuition. They might not use, the word obsessive. They might, some of those words are kind of normal words. Or Kristen, for you, intellect. They're not, you're not going to have people likely resonate with like, get rid of your intellect, right? That's not the wording that's going to work. So what are the different synonyms that you can come up with that your people would have in their own mouths from their own expression? Second step, do all the same for the gift. And then the third step is to just try it. Like, see what happens. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be a little clunky. Put out a social post or an email or talk to another human, and experiment and see what lands, see what doesn't. You know, if we sit here and try to, Kristen, I liked yours, the line 4 there, like wait for the perfect opportunity or perfect it. And like, not, you know what? Just put it out there, see what happens, and see how it lands, see what you need to shift. But we have so many opportunities. I think this is what's really beautiful about Mercury and the communication side is that, I mean, we can put out as many social posts as we want. We can talk to people all day long, right? If we choose to, we can really allow ourselves to express, and we can try again and again and again. It's not something that we have to, you only get one shot. It's not true. So yeah, that's the
Can I
hope.
ask another question, please?
Absolutely. Yeah. Here we go.
It is Q&A. It's coming right up. So when with the fractal line, is that how we're relating to our people versus like the shadow? We just clarified that the shadow and gift are how our people are experiencing it.
Uh-huh.
Is the fractal line more speaking to us and how we're meeting them?
The fractal line is the way that Richard Rudd puts it in this one. The fractal line is like your soul tribe, the people that you're here to connect with in some way. Right?
But the actual number, so like my 4, the asceticism, is that more speaking to me versus speaking to something that's going on with how my ideal client relates? So in this specific conscious Mercury.
Yeah, in that it's going to be, yes, that's more for you. That would, yeah, your energy of, are you in isolation in order to reflect, or are you withdrawing and just never going out? Yeah, I see that. That question for you. That feels more like, what are you experiencing in your own,
in relationship to my messaging?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that true in general, like for Kira as well? That point number is like, what is she experiencing in relationship to her messaging?
Yes. And yours was 57. Is that right, Kira? Yeah. 57.
4.
Also 4. Yes. That's what you are experiencing. So for your ability to share your message.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you.
Or how you share your message. Yeah. Most effectively. Yeah. And Kira, that's interesting. The undefined spleen, the spleen is our most primitive center. So it's it's all based on the fears that we, that wave of fear almost of, am I safe? Okay. Yes or no. Right. Do I need to move? It's that, that automatic response or autonomic response. Like when a deer like doesn't even see something, but it has that wave of like, oh, I'm off. Right. That's our splenic center. So yeah, interesting. So that, yeah, you'll feel that if you have an undefined spleen, you will feel those waves coming through other people as well. Is that what you're? saying, yeah. Love that. Sebastian, what about you? Anything? Do you have any questions? I didn't go
I
to you
do.
today.
I do, and I think I might have missed it. The screenshot said line designations for gate 64. So are those line designations the same for all of us?
No, those, even the names are different. So like for Kira, hers is the director, like there's 57, got utilization,
Depends
progression.
on the gate.
Yeah, so each gate is different. Which gate is your Mercury?
59.4.
59. So the gate of dispersion or sexuality, the ability to break down barriers to achieve union. Yeah, these ones are funny. So can you read those or are they backwards? Line 6 is the one night stand. Line 5 is the femme fatale or the Casanova. What was yours is 4, right?
Yes.
That's funny. You're all line 4s. Line 4 is brotherhood / sisterhood. So the dropping on the high side, the dropping of barriers to union to establish a universal union, the power derived from non-sexual intimacy. And the detriment is an intellectual understanding that is rarely put into action, where the idea cannot restrain the sex drive. Interesting.
What is the name of that gate?
Gate of dispersion or the gate of sexuality. It's in the, is that in the root center? No, that's in the sacral center, I believe. 59. Yeah, 59 is right here in the sacral center. It's part of the, I think it's part of the tribal circuit also. That again, so the connection, like wanting to bring people together, literally to continue the species. But yeah, it's interesting for you that that line 4, the brotherhood, sisterhood, the dropping of barriers to union to establish a universal union, the power derived from non-sexual intimacy, having vulnerable, intimate, deep conversations, right, with people, because this is about communication. What is that? How does that feel?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely brotherhood, sisterhood, coming together and be on the same team. Personalities. It's not always going to be smooth sailings, ups and downs, but there's still a cohesive bond.
Right. Yeah. Especially that piece of establishing a universal union as well. Sticks out to me.
I take that as like shared values, shared mission, vision.
Yeah. The repressive nature is excluded, and the reactive nature is intrusive to that as well. Dishonesty, the shadow of dishonesty, and the gift of intimacy. Repressive nature is excluded. Feeling excluded is a classic example of the victim state, as it blames others rather than taking responsibility for its own feelings. These people unconsciously exclude themselves out of a deep-seated fear of losing control. When you open your doors to others, then you always lose control. Such people actually manage to draw negative attention through their self-exclusion. Let's see. However, the moment you do choose to include yourself, the entire illusion is instantly shattered. So that's interesting. The intrusive side, the fear of being excluded is not repressed here, but is expressed reactively as anger, which then becomes intrusive. They push past the door, physically and emotionally invading another person's aura. Such people will try to dominate their relationships in order to avoid rejection, which means that they can never stay with anyone who is honest enough to challenge them. What's coming through for you in that with your people, your fractal?
Yeah, I kept looking at the excluding and intrusive it wasn't really clicking, but I think what it's arriving to for me is excluding your heart. You know, that sounds pretty Disney to me, but it's like, I think that's what connects is, is it going to share that extra layer of this is how I feel and this is what I believe, and sharing that extra layer being the transparency, the intimacy.
Mhm.
And the brotherhood, sisterhood in it being like, it's okay, we don't all have to agree on everything all the time. And we can still be together, right? Like people can have their different feelings or different beliefs, we can still be there. So I think that is something I definitely see in others, because I also feel like I went on my own journey with that and still am, of if I share what I feel and what I believe, am I going to get kicked out, off the island?
Instead of, yeah, instead of surrendering to that and creating intimacy with a group through, helping people create that space. That's what you help people do, is to create that space where they can have, like this, the space to share what's true from their heart with a group. Interesting. I love it. What else? Any other questions? I have a couple more minutes. Or if you have to hop off, that is okay too. Nothing? Good. Okay. I would.
Oh, wait, no, I do have a
Yes, go
add
ahead.
question. Maybe I just missed it. How do we get in? You're talking about a members area. How do we access that?
Yes, Sebastian. How do we get that all set up? It was all set up before with the expansive CEO mastermind. So I think we just need to.
Yeah,
share.
we'll just have a chat on what that looks like. So we have the area set up. It's just getting the new content in and the new members.
Okay. So we will have, last week, I have last week's in the cloud, which is what's taking up all my storage space. And then this one will be, so we'll create a library, right, of all of the different weeks, along with, again, the meditations. So this is certainly building as we go, of having those resources for you to go and look back on too. And then when new people come in, they can also, oh, if you go back to this week, you can see, here's the Conscious Mercury, here's, in case it's like we've moved on to other things, because we'll learn and do other things, but this information will always be available in that space. So we will work on that this week and send you all of the stuff via email. And if anything else comes up, or if you have any questions, or you're like, hey, I really want to look at this thing, next week, my plan is to look at defined centers, undefined centers, and what that means, how we connect with others more, again, in that money magnetism lens. But if there's something specific that you're like, I heard about this, I really want to, dive into this, let me know and we'll put it on the calendar as well. So we can hit those things that are lighting up for you. Sound good? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
And we will.
Minna,
Yes.
I think this would be if you were going to offer a free class to get people even that you don't know in, I think doing a Conscious Mercury one for business, for people that have their own businesses. I think this is to me, this has stood out as like a singular entity, to get exposed to Gene Keys and human design and how it can support your business in a different way than looking at the whole pearl sequence. I just feel like it kind of stands alone in a really powerful way that could be very enticing for people.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because it all goes together, right? But yeah, this is one that, you can contemplate from several different angles. Yeah. And how
it provides a lot of immediate value in a way that is directly translatable to somebody who's maybe not necessarily quite as into like reading charts and getting up really esoteric with it. And, there's a lot of value in it, period. And I think there's just something translatable about this key to a wider group of people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sebastian, can you help me remember that?
Yes.
We'll
I think
talk.
a wider group of people also know about Mercury. Like Mercury in retrograde is like a thing.
True.
So I
That's
think
true.
it's like a good foot in the door.
Yeah,
Mhm.
beautiful. I appreciate that. Truly.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you all. All right, I'm gonna go get ready for a radio show, and I will see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.